At 2:47 a.m. on August 2, 1865, 600 miles from the Irish coast, the impossible happened. The cable snapped. Chief Engineer Samuel Canning stood on the deck of the SS Great Eastern, watching 1,186 miles of telegraph wire, 2 years of planning, $600,000 in investment, the hopes of 2 continents, sink into the Atlantic abyss. The break occurred at 2,000 fathoms, 12,000 feet down. The wire fell at 30 feet per second, coiling on the seabed like a dying serpent. They'd been so close. Newfoundland was 4 days away. This was the 7th attempt to connect Europe and America by telegraph. 6 times before, cables had failed within weeks of installation. 6 times, fortunes had been lost. But this attempt was different. The SS Great Eastern was different. The ship was a monster, 692 feet long, 22,500 tons displacement, 6 times larger than any vessel afloat in 1865. Iron hull, 35 feet wide at the beam, reinforced with double plating, 5 funnels, 6 masts, 18,015 square feet of sail, twin paddle wheels, 56 feet in diameter, a single screw propeller 24 feet across. The most powerful ship in history, built by Isambard Kingdom Brunel to carry 4,000 passengers to Australia, without refueling. But Brunel never saw his masterpiece succeed. The Great Eastern bankrupted 5 companies, killed 5 workers during construction, and broke its creator. Brunel suffered a stroke aboard the ship during trials in September 1859. He died 10 days later, age 53. The ship was a commercial disaster. Too large for any port, too expensive to operate, too ambitious for its time. For 6 years, the Great Eastern languished. Then, in 1864, the Telegraph Construction and Maintenance Company saw what others hadn't. The ship's cargo holds could store 2,300 miles of cable. Its immense engines could maintain steady tension during payout. Its size provided stability in Atlantic storms. The Great Eastern wasn't a passenger liner. It was the only cable ship that could work. The cable itself was an engineering marvel. 7 copper wires twisted into a conducting core, 4 layers of gutta-percha insulation, 18 strands of iron wire armor, 1-inch diameter, 1 ton per nautical mile, 2,500 miles loaded aboard in 3 massive coils, each weighing 3,300 tons. The mathematics were brutal. Cable payout had to match ship speed exactly. Too slow, the cable would pile up on the seabed and break under its own weight. Too fast, it would snap from tension. The Great Eastern's engines had to maintain precisely 5. 2 knots while feeding cable at exactly 6. 2 knots to account for seabed variation. Any deviation meant failure. Valentia Island, Ireland, July 23, 1865, dawn. The Great Eastern departed with 500 men aboard. Engineers, electricians, sailors, mechanics. They knew the odds. The 1858 cable lasted 3 weeks before electrical failures killed the signal. The 1857 attempt broke after 335 miles. The 1856 cable failed after 34 miles. But they had advantages the earlier expeditions lacked. Continuous electrical testing through every foot of paid-out cable. If conductivity dropped, they'd know immediately. Sophisticated depth gauges calculating seabed profile in real time. Improved braking systems to control payout speed with hydraulic precision. And the Great Eastern's mass, so stable that Atlantic swells barely registered. For 8 days, everything worked. The cable paid out smooth as clockwork, 6 knots over the ground, 7 knots through the paying out machinery. The electrical signal remained strong. Messages flashed back to Valentia every hour. All well, proceeding. On July 27th, they crossed the 1,000-mile mark. Deeper than Mount Everest is tall, the cable descended through pressure zones that would crush a man instantly. Yet the signal held. July 31st, 100 miles. Less than 200 miles to the first plateau where the cable would reach Newfoundland's continental shelf. That's when the machinery jammed. At 1:40 a.m. on August 2nd, a kink in the cable lodged in the paying out wheel. The ship was moving at 6 knots. The cable was stationary. Tension built in seconds. Engineers scrambled to reverse the engines, slow the ship, relieve the strain. For 90 seconds the cable held, then it gave. The snap was audible across the deck. The loose end disappeared into darkness, trailing white phosphorescence. Samuel Canning made the calculation instantly. They had grappling equipment aboard. Wire hooks, 16,000 feet of retrieval line. If they could drag the seabed and snag the cable, they could splice it and continue. It had never been done at 12,000 feet depth, but the alternative was abandonment. For 13 days, the Great Eastern drifted in circles, dragging grappling hooks across 2 miles of ocean floor. 5 times they snagged something. 5 times the retrieval line broke under the cable's weight. On August 11th, a severe Atlantic storm forced them to cut loose and run for Ireland. The 1865 expedition was a failure, but not a defeat. Cyrus Westfield, the American entrepreneur who'd financed 7 cable attempts, raised another $600,000. The Telegraph Company ordered a new cable, heavier, stronger, better insulated. 2,700 miles, 6,000 tons. The Great Eastern's holds were reinforced. July 13, 1866, Valentia Island. Second attempt. This time, the electrical team tested every foot of cable before loading. Any section showing conductivity variation was cut out and replaced. The paying out machinery was redesigned with redundant braking systems. 3 separate controls could stop the cable independently. The crew knew the risks, but they also knew they'd gotten within 200 miles last year. They understood the machinery better. They trusted the Great Eastern. For 14 days, the payout was flawless. No kinks, no jams, no electrical faults. The cable descended through the same trenches that had swallowed the 1865 line. The ship maintained exactly 2 knots. The signal remained strong enough to transmit clear Morse code back to Ireland. On July 27th at 1:35 a.m., the forward lookout sighted the coast of Newfoundland. At 9 guns a.m., the Great Eastern anchored in Heart's Content Harbour. 1,152 nautical miles of cable stretched across the Atlantic seabed, connecting Telegraph House in Valentia to Trinity Bay, Newfoundland. The first message transmitted was 8 words. A treaty of peace has been signed between Austria and Prussia. The Atlantic Telegraph was operational. Messages that took weeks by ship now transmitted in minutes. The price dropped from $5 per word to 25 cents. In the first year, 3,000 messages crossed the Atlantic. Within a decade, 20,000 annually. But Samuel Canning wasn't finished. The 1865 cable was still down there, 200 miles from Newfoundland. 1,186 miles of functional wire, representing $400,000 in materials. If they could recover it, splice on 200 miles of new cable, they'd have a second transatlantic line. The commercial value would be immense. August 1866. The Great Eastern returned to the coordinates where the 1865 cable had snapped. They had better grappling equipment this time, stronger retrieval lines rated for 30 tons, and they had experience. For 9 days, they dragged the seabed. On August 17th, the grapple snagged. The retrieval line held. For 36 hours, they hauled cable from 12,000 feet down. 1 foot per second. The winch screamed. The deck crew worked in shifts. At dawn on August 19th, the severed end of the 1865 cable broke the surface. The electrical team tested it immediately. Full conductivity. The cable had lain on the Atlantic floor for a year and was still functional. They spliced 200 miles of new cable to the recovered end and paid it out to Newfoundland. On September 7, 1866, the second transatlantic telegraph went live. The SS Great Eastern completed one final cable mission in 1869, laying a line from France to Newfoundland via the Azores. Then the ship was retired. Too large, too expensive, too specialized. It was broken up for scrap in 1889. The hull took 18 months to dismantle. Workers found 5 skeletons sealed inside the double-plated walls, men who died during construction 30 years before and were never recovered. But the Great Eastern's legacy endured. The 1866 cables operated until the 1960s. More than 50 transatlantic cables followed, each using techniques pioneered aboard Brunel's impossible ship. The telegraph network collapsed distance. Stock prices, news, military orders, personal messages all flowed at electric speed. Queen Victoria sent a 99-word message to President Andrew Johnson in 67 seconds. European markets responded to New York trading in real time. The American Civil War was the last major conflict where generals fought without instant communication with their capitals. Isambard Kingdom Brunel died believing his masterpiece was a failure. He never knew the Great Eastern would succeed at a task he never imagined for it. The ship was too ambitious for passengers, but it was perfect for an impossible mission that connected the world. In 1866, 2,500 miles of copper wire on the ocean floor changed human civilization as profoundly as the internet would 130 years later. And it was carried there by a ship that everyone said was too big, too impractical, too expensive to be useful. They were wrong. Sometimes the impossible just needs the right impossible ship.